Hey everyone, Thomas from Bricks here. In today's video, I'm going to show the highlights of the latest Bricks 1.11, which we first going to release as a beta release, and it's now available as a manual download from your Bricks Build account. So you can head over to my Bricks.io, download a zip file. Don't use it on any live website yet. It's just meant for testing and providing feedback. So you can share that with us via email or by posting on the forum. All right, so this one is big release, clocking in a little bit more than 100 changes. As always with this kind of release videos, we're just gonna have a look at the main new features. Definitely make sure to check out the full changelog, especially this one, because it comes with, I think, around 35 new features. You can see here the ones that we're actually gonna have a look at are those 12 here on the left-hand side. But I think in total, yeah, we have around 35 new features, dozens of improvements here, and the rest bug fixes. So make sure to check out the full changelog. The highlights of this one, we're gonna kick this video off with having a look at the query filter phase 2. It's a collection of new features and improvements regards to the query filters. Then we're gonna have a look at the two new elements here next. That's the back to top element, which we added as a nestable element, and the rating element, which also includes the review schema. I'm gonna demo all of this, so it's all gonna make more sense once we dive into the builder. Accessibility-wise, we've added various improvements to a couple of elements, but also inside the builder itself. Speaking of the builder, those are a couple of really nice, cool new features that should boost your in-builder productivity or just general quality of life improvements. Continuing with the builder, we also improved the performance. We're going to have a look at some of the cases that previously caused a lag or even a freeze in the builder, especially if you're working on the more complex the page and the data gets, the more severe was the lag, really. So that has been fixed as well. I'm going to talk about this more later on. Global classes now have a trash or bin feature. So instead of just permanently deleting a class right away, right inside the builder, if you delete the class, you save the builder, it's gone from your database. Now we follow more a approach that you're probably familiar from your computer, where first we're going to put the classes in the trash, and then you can decide if you want to restore it or if you want to permanently delete it. Form submission access can now be set on a user role or an individual user basis. So previously also only the administrator was able to view form submissions in the backend and WordPress dashboard. Now you can control that using this new setting here. WooCommerce has received new dynamic data tags, 2 of them actually. Again, I'm going to demo this later on. There's a new interaction that allows you to toggle the Offcanvas. Previously, you were also only really able to do this in an accessible way using the toggle element. So now this can be done from any element, really. And there are 2 breaking changes, rather minor, but I still want to mention them just for completeness sake. And then a couple of other noteworthy changes I just want to highlight. I'm not going to demo them, but yeah, just to mention them so you are aware. All right, so also this video I expect it to be a bit longer than the usual video because I also want to take my time to go and demo those features here. So yeah, if you're not interested in a particular feature or if you don't use query filters, you can just skip ahead. There are timestamps in the video description below. All right, with that being said, let's start off this video here now with, after the intro, query filter phase 2. So what we considered phase 1 was really the initial experimental stage that we left a couple of releases ago with query filters. You can now use it on live websites, but there were still a couple of things missing, especially for B2B sites that use query filters, like in an e-commerce context. I think there's some great additions here. Again, you can have a look at the full changelog. I'm not going to show every new control that we added here, but we're going to focus on some of the bigger changes we made here. For example, we have a new element for query filters called the active filter element. We now support URL parameters and a couple of new controls here. Those parameters also compatible with the Ajax search, browser navigation. The URL automatically updates in real time as you apply filters, and you can also customize those parameter names. Further down below, I think we're also going to have a look at this new interaction trigger. That's also pretty cool to control other elements in regards to if a filter is empty or not. I'm just going to show a really simple example, but yeah, you can apply this in any other context as well, according to your requirements. Okay, so enough talking here on the changelog page. Let's just jump into the builder. So I'm just going to demo some of those query filter phase 2 new features. So this is the page that I've prepared here on the left-hand side. So we're going to go, those are the examples I prepared here, a section for each of them. First one, the query filter phase 2. You can see here, just to explain the structure a little bit, on the left-hand side, I've got a couple of query filters. And on the right-hand side, I've got a query loop here. This is a product loop, just a normal WooCommerce demo data shop. And the first item that I would like to show you here is the new active filter element. So all you need to do here, as with any other filter element, is just apply first a target query. And in my case now, I just applied some styling, button, circle, and then I added this icon here. So when an active filter shows up, so whenever you modify a filter and interact with a filter on a page, its value is gonna show up as an active filter. So when someone would land on this page and the URL parameter, because that's like the sweet combination that we have now, populates the filters and the results automatically on page load, you would see those filters and you can just reset them just simply by clicking on them. That's why in my case now I also added this icon here. You don't need to add this close icon, but yeah, I just added it because it makes it a little bit easier to understand that this can be resetted this way. So let's just go to the front end and let's perform a little search here. For search filter, I'm going to search for logo because I know I have a couple of results here. And you can see now that I've applied this filter, I have my active filter here saying logo, right? And if I click on it, I can reset it this way. Like previously, especially if you have a really large query filter and you want to reset it, like for the price filter, I would just basically need to drag everything, the minimum value, the maximum price, to the very end. Categories, I needed to reset everything, like for this radio filter here. So it was really cumbersome to just get to reset everything properly. And now with the active filters, it makes it really easy. And also for the user to just see what's been applied, right? So that's the active filter. I can also, actually, let me quickly show you this. Especially if I apply a couple of changes here. So let's just say I have a search and then I select the product category. Now it just says logo and t-shirts. It's not really clear what is what really is what. I don't know what's the search term. I mean, I can see it because here it's kind of next to each other, but with t-shirts already, what does it refer to, right? It's not inherently clear. So what I can do here, and this is available, this control group is available for every filter, except the active filter element itself, of course. I can just go here. In my case now, I've applied the search and categories. I'm going to use the active filter here. So you can open that control group and just put a prefix here or suffix or the title attribute. I think the prefix makes it most explicit. So I'm just going to define a prefix and like you can just say here search :space. And yeah, let's just apply that. Let's reload. And now you can say it says search logo, right? So this makes it a little bit easier to understand what this value actually refers to. For t-shirts, in my case here, those are the product categories. I can also go here to the active filter and instead of a prefix, let me just show you how it looks with the titles. I'm just going to say category as a title attribute. And so if I hover over the t-shirt, I can see this is for the category. So whatever you prefer, you can set it up either using a prefix, suffix, or this title here. URL parameters would be the next one that I would like to show you. If you've paid attention to the URL before, you could already see that it automatically updates. Now let me reset everything so just so you can see how, and just pay attention at the URL here while I perform my search. So let's again search for logo. And you can now see that the URL, what I mentioned initially, updates automatically whenever you apply a filter. So in my case now I search for logo, so it says search logo. And this parameter name is also customizable. I've actually set this to _search. You can use any other, this is customizable, so it's really up to you. We recommend to prefix it and to avoid any conflicts with any other third-party plugins or WordPress core reserved keywords, such as S, which WordPress uses for the search as URL parameter. So yeah, that's why we just now this demo also use the underscore, but it's up to you. You don't need to use an underscore. Just a kind of recommendation for best practices to avoid any conflicts. And for the categories, I just follow the same prefix here, just underscore categories for the price. Also, I have underscore price. So if I would select t-shirt now again, you can see now it says search logo and then underscore categories is t-shirts. So you can share this link and whenever someone clicks on it, or you can reference it from another page, this query would be populated this way, right? This was previously not possible. Whenever you landed on the page with a query loop, when the query filter, it's just gonna output whatever results you had initially according to your query loop arguments, right? So now this is, you can populate this just by performing a query filter here and then copy and pasting this URL wherever you need it, right? So I think this is a huge one that we now covered, the new active filter and the URL parameter support. We can have a look at the search to clear the input. Yeah, that was also previously not available. So now whenever I type something, I have this ability here. Also, this is customizable as a icon control. I can just click here and reset my search that way as well. I think it makes sense on the search filter, but yeah, it wasn't previously available. Now it is. Another smart feature for the submit and reset filter is that we only show the reset filter when we actually have some filters applied. So if there's no filter, let me just reset everything. And you can see I don't have any reset filter here because there's nothing to reset. So it's no point actually showing this. This has to be enabled through a setting. So if I go to reset, the filter submit reset element, I can say hide if no active filter, right? And also a little description here. It's not a default, but yeah, you can set it up that way, which is what I've done in my demo here. So whenever I actually apply some filter, now I apply it one, and now I have the reset button here. Makes sense, right? So that's another feature right here. And the last one that I want to show you for the query filter phase 2 is the new interaction triggers for filter empty and filter not empty. So what I did here in my local demo, you can see I've added a heading to every filter. But for the active filter, it wouldn't really make sense, like in my case, at least my setup here, to show this heading when there's actually no active filter. It would just simply say active filter, but initially there's nothing here if no filter has been applied, right? So what I did here, and you can actually see that this is the heading, right? It shows, because I have an active filter, this category. If I clear it, the heading disappears. But the heading and the filter, they are two independent elements, right? So this heading could sit anywhere else on my page. It doesn't need to be here. But yeah, of course, I want to have the context here. I want to tell people basically, hey, what is this? What are you looking at? Those are active filters. But I only want to show them when I actually have active filters. So that's why I'm using the new interactions in this context here. You can see I have one interaction for filter empty. So whenever the active filter is empty, I want to hide this element. I want to hide my setting here, right? So that's why initially on page load, there's no filter. If no filter has been applied through the URL, so this heading will not be shown. When the filter is not empty, and this is the filter ID that I copied from the active filter element, then I want to show this element, right? If it's not empty, it means it has some active filter. I want to show this heading in combination. And this is what allows me to perform my search here. And then the active filter and this heading shows. If there's no active filter, my heading doesn't show, right? So that's another really nice new feature right there. A couple of other new changes here as well for different filters, but we're not going to have a look at them right now. That's why the beta is there for you to download and to play around with those controls. Let us know what you think. And yeah, this concludes everything I wanted to show you for the query filter phase 2. Let's continue with our new elements here. Those have been sitting on the roadmap for quite some time and finally made their way into bricks. And that's the back to top element, which we provide as a nestable element. Let me show you that one first. Rather simple element. I have it right here. You can see at the bottom right here, this little button, and this is actually a nestable element. You can see I can toggle this element, and automatically by default, if you just insert a back to top element, which is, in my case, I've pinned it, but otherwise it would be at the end of the general elements group. Or you can search for it, right? I've pinned it just for the video as well. So you can see your back to top element. If I'm going to insert that one, it would automatically, let me quickly show you. Put it at the end here, back to top. By default, also it comes with an icon and the text, right? This is how it's going to be populated, but you can swap this out for any other elements that when you put inside there. Okay, it shows you at the bottom right, and you can adjust the position to your liking. By default, it has a fixed position, meaning it's outside of the normal document flow. So it's just going to float here at the bottom right corner. 20 pixel to the right and to the bottom. If you want to change it to the top, I can put a 20 here, and then I need to set the bottom to auto, and now it would be at the very top here. So that's a way for you to reposition it. Or if you want to have it inside the document flow, inside a specific section, maybe, yeah, you can make it static, relative, absolute, or sticky. Okay, by default also it's a button. Accessibility-wise, you can change this, but by default that's how we set it. You can define an area label as well. If you don't have any descriptive text inside of the back to top button, feel free to use the area label here. And at the very bottom, we also have a couple of specific controls for this back to top element. So by default, it's always going to show, and it's just going to show at the bottom right here. But you can adjust this by saying you want to should only be visible after scrolling down a certain number of pixels. So in my case, let's just say once I scrolled at least 100 pixels, I want to show this. And so let's save here. Let's reload. And you can see initially my button now doesn't show anymore, but I scroll down, and once I hit this 100 pixel threshold, the button shows. If you click it, it scrolls back up. Another setting we have for the back to top is the visible on scroll up. So we only gonna show the back to top element if you scroll up, not if you scroll down. So now it's a combination of scroll at least 100 pixel down, but you also should scroll up in order to see that element. So let me show you that as well. So I scroll down. I'm definitely more than 100 pixels down, but I'm not scrolling up, so it doesn't show. But if I scroll up, now it shows. I click it, and I can scroll up. If you prefer a smooth scroll, you can enable that one as well. So now it's a combination of those three settings. So I scroll down more than 100 pixels. I scroll up, it shows. I click it, and it smoothly scrolls back to the top. All right, that's everything pretty much to say about the back to top. If you want to show this everywhere on your website, make sure to add this back to top element maybe in a photo template. If you don't have a photo, add it to your header. Or if you want to have it on a specific page, of course, just add it to any other page or template you would like to show it. Next up would be the rating element. Again, a rather simple element. We're considering how we should implement it according to the comments, because people ask if you can make this as some sort of review element, so you can actually click on the number of stars, and then you're just going to save this in some context. We have a different idea how we're going to implement it, where we can use the rating element. But yeah, we just wanted to stick to the logic here of having this as just to show a rating that you defined. There's support for dynamic data, so you can customize it through ACF or any other plugin with whatever dynamic data you want to populate it with. You can use the default stars. So I have prepared some examples here, using the default star SVG, which automatically comes with bricks. You can add your custom fonts. You can also customize the number of icons you want to show. By default, it shows 5 ratings. The value for the rating that should be filled can also be adjusted in decimal steps. So in my case here, I put 3.5. If I would put 3.75, you will see how it basically fills up accordingly. And the second example, I'm using the icon font. Instead of 5, I show 4. So just a couple of examples to show you how this one operates here. And the last one, I'm using a custom SVG, this hot SVG. And I also enabled the schema here for this one. So whenever you remember on the search results, when you see those ratings here, this is basically what it would generate. So Google or other search engines can read the structured data and can show it your search results in a more visual way. Definitely helps with click-through rate. I think it's also explained here as well. This JSON linked data, and how it works, and also a link explaining this on Google. And you can just enable this by simply ticking this checkbox, and then you have those 2 required controls that you need to fill out, like what's the type of item that's being reviewed here, and what's the item name, and who's the review author. Those are the settings currently available for the schema support for the rating element. All right, so those are the 2 new elements that I wanted to show you. I mean, this is the third one. The first one's actually the active filter, right? But then also we have the back to top as a nestable element and the rating element with the review schema. Accessibility-wise, we've got a couple of improvements here according to user input and some independent feedback as well. The accordion and tab element were pretty inaccessible, both in terms of the HTML structure. So a couple of area attributes were missing. Those have been added. And in terms of keyboard navigation, we also added various improvements. I'm going to show you this down here. So we went through the rating element, and now we can have look at the accessibility improvement. So I'm just going to click here on the heading, and I'm going to tap, and you can see I'm now on my accordion, and then with space and enter, I can just toggle those two here. I can jump to the tab element here, and then using the arrow left and right, I can also navigate through those tabs, and I can also tap into them, and then I go to the next focusable element, which is this link down below here. But that's also possible now. If you have a look at the HTML structure, which I'm not going to go over right now, you can also see the various area attributes that we implemented both for the accordion and tab elements, and also the nestable counterparts. So accordion, nestable accordion, tabs, and nestable tabs, they all have those accessibility improvements. This is in terms of the elements that have received the accessibility improvements. There are also accessibility improvements inside the builder. So one thing good that I have a look at the change log again is also the ability, what I just showed you with the rating element, this schema support is also available for the accordion. And for the rating, we have the schema type for the review, and for the accordion, we have the schema type for the FAQ. So I have enabled that as well, I believe. Let me quickly have a look at my accordion here. You have this checkbox here that you just need to enable, and then it automatically populates or generates the structured data for the FAQ schema. So this is going to be the first question. This is going to be the first answer. This is going to be the second question. This is going to be the second answer. If you have a look at the HTML, maybe just quickly inspect it so you can see what's happening here. You'll see that I have this LD-JSON. So this is the linked JSON data. So this is structured data we're talking about. And this is what Bricks generates automatically for you. Is you just need to enable the checkbox. And then search engines can interpret this and display it accordingly in the results. So that's possible just with using this simple checkbox here. Another cool feature in Bricks 1.11, and that's everything about accessibility on the front end. Inside the builder, toolbar is now keyboard accessible, and there's also a new keyboard shortcut, Alt Option plus T. Let us know if this is a good choice. It's kind of became a little bit hard to find keyboard shortcuts that are not already taken by the browser itself or the different browsers. So I think, but this one is a good one, and T obviously stands for the toolbar. And once you're inside the toolbar, you can just tap through the toolbar and open the whatever item you need. So we're gonna quickly try that. So I'm just gonna go and click up here. I'm gonna tap, and you can see here now that I have to focus on the Bricks logo, which in my case now, if I would just hit enter, it would bring me to the dashboard. And you can tap through. So this is states. Those are the classes and variables. Those are the pages. So I can also open them. And now it brings the photos, the focus automatically in here. There's just some additional logic. And I can tap and shift to go backwards. So from up here now, I just come here, and then I go to the save. So I'm just tapping backwards now, so you can see how everything is available. You can tap through here. You can switch breakpoints. You can open the breakpoint manager, reload the canvas, view all the elements. Just by using your keyboard. If you're more comfortable with that now, that should speed up the whole process as well. That's the keyboard accessible pages panel as well. There's some slight changes there. We already opened it, so let's just try to go back in. I'm gonna hit Alt-T, and then I'm gonna navigate here. I'm gonna press enter. It brings me in here, and this icon that we had previously up here to create new pages has been removed. You can just simply, it also says here on the placeholder value, you can search or create. So in my case now, if I want to create a new page, I can just search for new, nothing here. And then I can also could tap through to clear the value, or I can do another tab, and this would allow me to create this new page from here. So this is how creating pages or whatever post type you've selected here works inside of the Pages panel. Lastly, the video element is also now keyboard accessible if you have defined an overlay or an icon setting. It wasn't possible to just, tap through the video element and then play it and focus on the icon or focus on the overlay and just start playing a video. It was just basically skipped over. Now this is also keyboard accessible as well. All right, next one I would like to show you are a couple and collection of new features to boost your in-builder productivity. So the context menu has received a little overhaul because we added two new actions for copy and pasting from the context menu, and that's for element, conditions, and interactions. There are some other ones like the classes, I remember, attributes as well. So we need to see once we start adding those if we can make some further improvements there, because otherwise the space is getting a little bit limited even with this approach. But yeah, I just want to show you now this new feature here, copy and paste element, conditions, and interactions, and a general cleanup of the context menu in the builder. So let's just jump into the builder and perform maybe just use this heading element. Do I have any conditions set up anywhere already? Oh no, here, builder productivity. I actually already have prepared this one. So this section here, you can see it has a condition and it also has an interaction. So when I right click on it, it brings up the context menu, right? And the first thing that you will also notice, we have a few items less here. So the copy and paste styles was a dedicated item here. It's now part of the copy item and then also the paste. So you can see the style icon here. This is how you can now copy styles. And then once I've copied styles, so let's just click here. So it says copied styles. I go to a different one and I right click again. And now as you can see that it says paste styles, and the context menu is also aware of what you have in your clipboard. So it only shows the icon, the paste action that makes sense for the content that you have in your clipboard, right? So yeah, that's the logic right there. And what I could do now, if I want to copy my conditions from this element, I can just click here and I go to my other element, I right click, and now you can see I can paste the conditions. So let's just paste them, and you can see it automatically brings up the conditions control panel here. So you can see the condition that I've defined for this element. I can do the same for interactions. I click on copy interactions, I go to my other element, or any other element, doesn't need to be this one, of course. And you can see the action has changed as well. And I can just simply click on paste interactions. And now I also have those interactions on this element. All right, that's the first one here. And the next in-build improvement is in regards to the dynamic data picker. You now have the ability to pin and save dynamic data tags. And we can also toggle the dynamic data categories. Let me quickly show you that one, especially if you use a couple of plugins or WooCommerce and dynamic data picker options, they get rather long. This is now much more cleaned up. Maybe let's have a look at the heading. Let's get out of the interactions and let's just click on the dynamic data picker. And you'll also already notice this new thing up here, this bar, and this is for all my pinned or saved tags, right? And the second thing that you will notice is now that all categories by default are collapsed. So yeah, you don't need to close them manually one by one. It would just simply have them closed. And if you want to expand them, you just click on the category itself. And now this category is open, everything else is closed. If I again visit the dynamic data picker, the dropdown again shows me whatever categories I have expanded. Right now in this 1.11 beta release, we store this data in the local storage. So if you would try this from a different browser, it would not be available. Maybe we can change it to storing this in the user meta. Let us know which solution you prefer. Right now, it's just in the local storage of the browser that you're currently using. I think user meta makes sense. I would not define this as a global kind of piece of information because maybe every user want to store different dynamic data tags. But yeah, let us know. That's what this beta is for. Yeah, I've pinned 2 dynamic data tags, or I should say I've pinned one and the other one I actually saved because this is not available in the dropdown, right? How you can pin a dynamic data tag, in my case, the post ID. Let me just maybe unpin it. So you can see if I click on the unpin, dynamic data tag has been unpinned. And if you hover over it, you can see this little pin icon, similar how you can pin elements. You can now pin your dynamic data text, right? So I can just pin whatever I want here. If I'm using the post title a lot, I can just simply click on pin and would pin the post title. The other option that I have is, and that's useful when you have a dynamic data tag with a filter that you often apply, or maybe for the echo tag, it also makes sense. Then you could just type in your dynamic data tag here, and then you will see a little pin icon that allows you to pin it. So let's just say in terms of echo, and I need to make sure I type out the entire dynamic data tag. So echo, and then let's just say I have a custom function and I close it, right? And I want to store this here. I don't want to have to type this every time from scratch. And I can now simply just say pin. And now I have pinned my dynamic data tag. When I reload the builder now, you will see that this is accessible to me now in the dynamic data dropdown, right? Yeah, that's the new addition for the dynamic data picker. The next little quality of life improvements is for the query loop icon that we have in the structure panel. As you remember, I have a query loop here on this page for the products here on the right-hand side. So previously, when you click this icon, it just simply, it was just an indicator for you that you are, let me actually get out of this element so you can see what's happening when I click on it. If I click on it now, you can see that I added the element, but it also automatically expands the query loop arguments here for me, this pop up, right? So I don't need to click on the icon. I need to go over here and click here again. I can just open it up and then it just shows here automatically. Not a little quality of life improvement, but yeah, it's now possible for the query loop icon as well. Also, if you ever experience the builder save is not working, especially also for us customer support, debugging this kind of information, I think this is a really nice addition that you now see this notification. If you remember this notification center, we added for the global class sync a couple of releases ago. And yeah, we can now utilize it for this kind of information as well. And you have the ability to see exactly what happened here. So it shows you the HTTP error code. And it's also, I think, forming some console log there, so we can have additional information to help you debug what happened here, why the builder is not saving. Yeah, I think this is also really nice debugging tool that we now have inside of Bricks itself. Speaking of the builder and some of the performance issues that users experienced, and this is really in relation to how many classes you're using on your site. And so if you're using a CSS framework and you have 3,000 classes, right, and you have a complex page, couple of hundred of elements, then performing certain actions were really taking a long time. A lag, and in some cases, maybe even a kind of freeze, making it really frustrating to continue editing those kind of pages with Bricks. So those actions that we identified and that we're able to address. And I would say the performance is even, or the performance, what we've tested this with, like I said, I think around 3,000 classes or 4,000 on pages with 1,000 elements. And there was no delay. What the performance even is faster than it was initially, even on pages with just a couple or handful of elements, right? So the first delay that we had was when you typed a new class name in the classes dropdown, there was a big delay. So what I'm talking and referring to is if you type in here, sorry, let me close this one, and you type in a class name, this was creating a lag. Of course, I don't have a lot of classes here. It's just a demo installation here with 10 classes, but now even you have a couple of thousands of classes, this should be instant, should be no more lag at all. The other one is when you create a new class. So when I'm actually in here and I click save, and then it just was basically freezing for, I think, around a second or so. I mean, depending on your setup and your machine as well, but there was a noticeable delay. So if you perform this action often, not good. And this has been fixed. The other one was when you are jumping between different elements. So you finished editing an element, you switch to different elements, or even just toggling the control groups created a lag. This should be completely gone and should be even faster than before, even on small pages. So when I toggle this now, this shows instantly here. There's no more, the controls render instantly. There's no more delay at all. And also if I jump between different elements, the settings, they just populate instantly. And you can see there's not even a flicker here anymore that we had before. I mean, just instant update. So I think in terms of builder productivity, it is going to be a nice good improvement here in Bricks 1.11. Vue.js, which is the JavaScript framework that we use inside the builder, we also updated it to 3.5, or I believe 3.5.3, something like that right now, but 3.5 introduced. And you can also have a look if you're interested in more details at the Vue.js release post of 3.5. Major refactoring, better performance, significant improved memory usage, and that also, this is a good one, optimized reactivity tracking for large, deeply reactive arrays. This is for the kind of data that I was just referring to previously. Global classes, which is a huge array. You can just imagine if you have 3,000 classes, every class is an item in this huge array. Same for the elements on the page. It's also just basically one large array collection of all the elements that you have on your page. So just upgrading also to Vue 3.5 also helped here. But yeah, those changes to actually address those issues. They're separated, so also required some refactor, which we now performed in 3.5. That's why this beta release also, especially for this change, to make sure everything is working, that we don't have those performance issues anymore, but all the actions in regards to the classes are still performed without any problems. Another setting, I'm just going to briefly mention this here, is which you have available if you go to Brick settings and then in the Builder tab in the WordPress dashboard, the query max results. So if you have some complicated nested queries, they can also cause some sort of hang up in the builder. There isn't really anything we can do on our end there, at least so far what we identified. But yeah, with the setting, this should also be able to address this issue. It's something that you would need to set up. It's only in regards to the builder. On the front end, of course, we would still show the results, all the results. But yeah, this is just inside the builder. So if you have a complex nested query, you can try using and reducing the value here to see if this improves any problems that you might experience inside of the builder. Speaking of classes, the global classes now have a trash. So as I also mentioned in the beginning of this video, so far, or previously, prior to Bricks 1.11, whenever you deleted a global class and you saved the builder, it was gone from your database. The only way really to recover it for you, which is to use a backup, right? But if, perform a lot of different changes also content-wise, and then use a backup from the previous day, obviously, all the other work would have been lost as well. So using the backup is also not the most elegant solution, right? So that's why now we borrowed or using the same approach that you also have for deleting files on your computer. So instead of just deleting the classes right away, we implemented or introduced now a trash or bin feature. So when you delete a global class, you're actually not deleting it straight away. It's first moved into the trash. And then inside of the trash, you can see a screenshot here. When you access the global class manager, we have this little trash icon that allows you to access the trash. You can decide if you want to restore a class or if you want to permanently delete it. It also shows you the deletion date and who has deleted that class. So, you can internally also communicate, okay, why have you deleted that class? You know that person was responsible for deleting a specific class at a certain time. It should also help further decide what action to perform here. I'm going to show you this quickly on my little demo side here. If I were to delete a class, I think I actually have some in the trash already. So let's just quickly access the trash first. Alt-T, tab, enter, brings up the global class manager. And I have 10 classes here, right? Those are the classes that I'm actively using. But you can also see this new trash icon here with a little counter that I have 5 classes in the trash. And if I click on it, I can access the trash. If you want to get out of the trash and just have the normal view, you just click that icon again. Or you can also click on the global class, on the classes button right here. Okay, let's jump into the trash and have a look. Those 5 classes, I can now decide how I want to proceed. Do I want to restore them or do I want to permanently delete them? So let's just say BX spacing XXL I want to restore. I can also restore a couple of classes at once or delete, right? Just by, in my case now I selected all of them and then I can perform a bulk action right here. In my case now I want to do this one by one. So I can just say BX spacing XL, I want to restore it. So it's out of the trash. And if I go to my classes now, I can see that the BRX spacing XXL class has been restored. If you added this class to any category, it will also automatically be put back into this category, right? And all the styles, everything is preserved. The only thing that changed here is that instead of when it's in the trash, it's no longer in the global classes array. It's in this trash array, which is stored somewhere else in the database, right, independently. Let's move it to the trash. Okay, so it's back in the trash, and you can see the class is now in the trash. Same if I were to go here to my container, I have a look at the classes, and I delete them. I'm still saying deleting them because I'm so used to it, but you can see here it also tells me that it actually moves it to the trash. So if I move to trash, sure, yes, I'm sure. Now I have a look at the trash, and you can see I now have 6 classes in the trash. My BRX test 1 is now in the trash as well. Everything performed here by me, but if you're working in a team, you will see, like I mentioned, the deletion date or the trash date and who has performed this action, right? Okay, that's the global class trash in 1.11. Let's jump to the next feature, which is the form submission access. That's a setting that we have available. I need to go to the backend to show you that. Oh, first of all, let me show you if you're not familiar with form submissions in Bricks. So if you have a form element, you can define an action that you want to store your form submissions in a database. I have enabled that setting, right? Save form submissions in database. And I also have my form submissions right here. In my case, it's rather simple. I just have one form with one submission. And because I'm the administrator, I can actually see those submissions. But if I were an editor or any other user without an administrator role, I would not be able to view those submissions. But depending on your structure and who should be able to see certain things, maybe you have that requirement to give further access to form submissions. And this is just to read them here in the WordPress dashboard. You cannot actually delete them, even if you would have access. The deletion part that I mean is this one here, this delete action. If I were to enable now, and which I also did, form submission access to editors, so all your editors now would have access to those form submissions, so they can also go to Bricks form submissions, but they're not able to delete anything, right? This is still a privilege that only administrators have, but they can access form submissions and see them and export them, right? That's what this feature is basically about. And next up, we're going to have a look at WooCommerce. 2 new dynamic data tags for your product images. There's the Woo product images dynamic data tag. This one will return the featured image and all your product gallery images. The second one is the Woo product gallery images dynamic data tag, and that one will only return the product gallery images. So depending on how you want to populate those elements, and should have mentioned this in the beginning, this actually supports for the image gallery element and the carousel element. So previously you were basically limited to just use the product gallery element, but maybe you want to have this different layout or a masonry layout, or using the metro layout, or this grid layout that you have with the image gallery, or in the carousel you want to show your product images. Now you can do it using the dynamic data feature and those dynamic data tags. I'm going to show you this quickly on another page that I've prepared, which is this one. So I have a very simple setup here, right? This section here at the beginning you can actually ignore. This first container. Up here, you can see what I did using the image gallery and the dynamic data field. I'm using the Woo product images, and you can see that it now populates. And this is the featured image, this one here, this hoodie. And those 5 dog images are the product gallery images. So using the Woo product images, I can now use this inside of an image gallery. And in my case, I'm using the masonry layout, generating this product image view here. On the right-hand side, I'm using the Woo product gallery images. So it's not using the featured image. You can see the difference here, right? This is the featured image and this is without the featured image. And in this case, I'm using the grid layout. You can also use the metro layout, right? But yeah, I think you get the point, what's possible now with those dynamic data tags and the image gallery and carousel element. So down here, I'm using, again, type media. And then I'm putting the dynamic data tag in here for the dynamic data input and populating my carousel with my product gallery images, right? So that's possible now as well. Make it more flexible to create single product pages. There's a new interaction to toggle the Offcanvas as well. Previously, the Offcanvas was really only toggleable in an accessible way using the toggle element, but maybe you want to toggle it through a button, a heading, an image, or whatever setup you have on your site. That's why now this new interaction allows you to toggle the Offcanvas from any element, really. I think I also have a simple example here that I want to show you. Yeah, at the very bottom. So there's a new interaction. What I did here, let me just quickly show you in the builder first. I have this button here, and the button has an interaction, and the interaction whenever I click this button, and this is the new action here, I want to toggle the off canvas. And which off canvas? I just simply, this is the off canvas here at the bottom, right? I just simply copied the CSS selector, the ID, pasted in here. So basically what it means is whenever someone clicks the button, I want to toggle this off canvas. And if I perform it now, I can click toggle, and you can see it now toggles this off canvas here through the button. I don't need to use the toggle element specifically. All right, so that's the latest feature that I really wanted to showcase in 1.11. There are two breaking changes, rather small, but yeah, just for completeness sake, like I mentioned, I want to say what changed now. Jet Engine, if you're using Jet Engine's checkboxes, the way they returned the values, it was just basically a collection of true and false. So true, if you have three options, it would just say true, false, true, depending on what has been checked or not. It's making it really hard to really effectively use those features. So we, basically ported the structure that we use, or that ACF also uses, to actually output the checked option labels. You can use the value filter to output the option values instead. That's for Jet Engine. So if you're using Jet Engine checkboxes and maybe some element condition logic there, definitely have to adjust, make sure to adjust your logic accordingly. And the related posts element as a new setting for the title. So now we need to have a wrapper around this related posts element if you're using this setting. So in case you have some custom CSS maybe that you're using for the related posts element, just make sure to check that one as well. That might need some minor adjustments. Some other noteworthy changes I want to mention is the background video now has poster setting. For YouTube, I think you also have a setting where you can just automatically pull in the poster from whatever YouTube provides you with, making it even easier to set up that poster. The breadcrumb element now supports new date, month, and tag archive pages, and also a couple of structure controls as well for the breadcrumb element. So make sure to check those out as well. The image control, the external URL supports now dynamic data, and we also renamed it from external URL to custom URL. I think we did a similar thing for the link control, where we also changed the external URL to the custom URL, making it a little bit more clear that it's not just specific for a custom URL, but you can, for an external URL, but that you can define any URL that you want right in there. Last feature, integration now, and the support for the ranked math and the Yoast content analysis. That was also previously not working with Wix content. Now it's working, so make sure to test that feature as well if you're using those feature and those two plugins, and let us know if it's working for you. And yeah, that wraps up all the points that I want to mention in Bricks 1.11. Please make sure to head over to your account, help us test this beta release, and we're looking forward to receive your feedback. Your email, the forum, that's everything I have for you today. Happy testing, and bye-bye.